Hello, this is the second video in a set of videos where we're building a basic website to represent the UN Sustainability Goals and really get an understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and how they all work. In our last video, we just set up an HTML template, which we see right here, and we did some setup of the folder structure. I'm just going to minimize this, which is this one here, and we did some configuring of the images. In this next video, what we're going to do is we're going to create a flipbox, and we're going to end up with this. So we're going to get the first image, the first sustainability goal, which is no poverty, and it's going to be in a flipbox element. So when you hover over it with your mouse, it flips over. Okay, so to do this, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take everything from UN Goals Step 1, and we're going to copy that, and we're going to make a new file, and we're going to call it UN Goals Step 2.html, and then we're going to paste that in there. And now I'm going to change this to Step 2. So now I can see the changes that I've made. Okay, so what I want to do first is I want to create that flipbox element. I'm just going to take a pretty much standard flipbox element and paste that in there. And this is a good opportunity to understand how to grab some code from W3 Schools and kind of break it down. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to W3 Schools, and I've already done this, and I've looked for the Flipbox W3 Schools site, and it shows me two flip boxes. We have one that flips horizontally, and we have one that flips vertically. And what I really like about this site is you can come down here and say try it yourself. And so this is the result. This is the code on the left hand side. And what we're going to first do is we're going to copy the actual flipbox division, and we can see that right there. So right here is my div, and I see class flipbox, and I'm going to come down to that div, and that is the HTML code that actually represents this flipbox element. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to come back into here, and I'm going to paste that into my body. Now you already might be on to me and say, well, I think this isn't going to work, but let's just show why it isn't going to work and talk about why it doesn't work. So we're going to save that, and I'm just going to come into my activity 1 here, and sure enough, there it is. I get front side, back side, but it obviously isn't a flip box. And the reason that is because this is the HTML that defines the content, but now we need to actually use CSS, which defines the style. So I have to get the CSS that tells us how to interpret this. And we'll see that this division has a class called flipbox, and then there's some internal divisions here. This is a predefined structure for making this element. So we're going to go back to the W3 Schools, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy everything inside the style tag. So I'm going to start here at the bottom, come up to the top, and I'm going to copy that, and now I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to put my style up there. And there it is. And I'm going to save that. Now, I tend to like to tab this in, so I'm going to go everything down here. And that just helps me see what's in between my style tag. So you see, this is all the CSS that defines the various style of the flipbox. And of course, there's going to be things in here we don't really fully appreciate yet. But, you know, the one thing you should notice is that we're using a dot notation. So that means that there's a class somewhere called flipbox in there. The other kind of add-in here is we see that we've actually set the font family for the body of the actual web page, and you'll see this really commonly where they'll have a list of fonts, and essentially what that does is it kind of will try Arial first, and if for some reason the browser or the system doesn't support that, then it will go to Helvetica, and if that's not supported, then it will go sans serif. This is a way of indicating multiple fonts, and allowing you to account for situations where this might be run in an environment that doesn't support a specific font you'd like. But that's besides the point. So let's come back here. Let's hit enter, and sure enough, there's my flip box. Perfect. Okay, so now our next step is we're going to customize this flip box. And now to do this, I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to minimize my style section. We're going to customize it. This is the flip box right here. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to put my image inside that flip box. And I'm going to actually do that right here. So I'm going to remove this H2 tag because I actually don't want it to say front side. And this div here is what defines what's the front of the flip box. And there, I'm going to put an image tag in there. So I can go online and find this. I have it over here. I'm just going to paste that in. Oh, pardon me. Let's make this a little bigger. There we go. So basically we're going to take this image. There we go. It's all in one line now. We have to specify the file name. Now remember that when we set up our system, we did it inside images. So that's why we have images / the file name. So which image do we want? We want this image right here. So I'm going to say e_sdg space goal o space o1.png. And now when I save this, what I should get is I should get that no poverty sign there. Great. Now, something funny happens. When I flip it, you see how the size of that element changes? So what I want is, because the front of this image, we sized it to 300 by 300, it kind of forces the size of that front tab to be that. But what I want to do now is the back has no image in it. So somewhere I've set the dimensions, the height and width of the back side. So let's take a look at our code here. And we look here and we see flipbox back. So let's scroll up for a bit and let's take a look at the style. And let's try and flipbox back. Well, there's flipbox back, and I don't see anything about dimensions, which is okay. Maybe, and again, maybe it comes from somewhere else. So the flipbox back division is inside this flipbox division, or inside this flipbox inner division, which is inside the flipbox division. So let's just look for something here, and if we kind of scroll around, eventually what you'll see is you'll see this. So we see that this flipbox has been set to be 300 pixels by 200 pixels. And that's how we define the size of the flipbox. Now, the front actually automatically becomes 300 by 300 because of the fact that the image is 300 by 300. But by changing this now, what happens, reload this, now that back's that same size. So that's good. Now we have looks a little nicer. So let's do a couple of things here. Okay, so what else could we do here? Well, notice when we flip this, you see it's really fine there, but you can see a border that kind of appears along the edge there. That's because this flipbox has a border around it that's gray. But what I want to do is I want to get rid of that border. I don't want that. I just want it to be a clean flip with no border around it. And what I can do is I can emphasize that border, if you want, to make it something like 100 pixels, which is going to look a little ridiculous, but then if you haven't seen it, you'll see it in a second. Oh, that didn't save. Let's make it 10px. There it is. There's that border around the edge. I don't think I reloaded the page. So I don't want a border at all around this. So I can simply remove that line. And now when I save this and reload this, no borders there. So that's nice. Okay, what else do I want to do? Well, I want to change the back of this slide to look a little different. So I'm going to come down here, and what I want to do is I want to change the back of the slide to have the name of the UN Sustainability Goal and a little question maybe. So I'm going to change that to an H3 because I want the text to be a little bit smaller, and I'm going to change this to say no poverty. And then what I'm going to add below it is I'm going to add a P tag, and I'm going to just put some sort of question. So something like, is universal income the solution? I don't know, something that just gets someone thinking about that sustainability goal. And now that I save this and I reload this, so no poverty, is universal income the solution? Okay, that looks not bad. But now what I want to do is I want to deal with the color, because what I don't like here is I don't like the fact that the front is red, but the back is blue. And one of the challenges might be is how do I get the color to match? So I could try and set the background color just to red, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to look for the flip. There you go, flip box back its background color is Dodger blue. Let's just set that to red and see how close that is. Save that. Load. That's good. Actually, that red looks pretty much right. However, the problem with that red is that it doesn't match perfectly. Even though it looks pretty close, it's not perfect. And when we get into other colors, one of the skills we want to develop as a good web designer is that ability to get the exact red, green, blue value, the RGB value of a color, and then use that in our CSS. And to do that, we're going to have to take the RGB value and convert it into a hex value. So I'm going to take a second to show you how to do that in this case. Now there's lots of ways to do this. One nice way is there's this nice tool, Chrome add-on you can put in called a color picker. One's called Colorzilla, another one's called Color Pick Eyedropper. But essentially what it does, and let me just pull up a different page to show you, is if I take color pick from a page, I can actually hover over and it will tell me the RGB value as well as the hexadecimal value right there of it. Again, some of them you'll just get the RGB value, in which case you'll then have to convert it manually. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But you'll notice that with our example, it's actually problematic because when I select my color picker tool, so pick a color from this page and I try and hover over it, it flips, so I don't get it. So let's look at another way we can do this. Another way we can do this is we can actually open up our Photoshop image that we used, and we simply use this color picker tool on the left hand side, this eyedropper tool, and then we simply come over and we hover over the color we want and select, and then that gives me the RGB value. So the RGB value of this red is 2352845. And so once I have that, I simply then pop into here, I go to my RGB to hex, and I type that value in. And let's just pull it up one more time to remind myself, 2352845. So I'm going to come back here, 2352845. And then I say convert to hex. And there it is down here. I'd actually already done it earlier. And so now that I have that RGB value as a hex code, I can copy that. I can go back into my development page here. And there we are. And I'm just going to paste that in like that. And now, when I take a look at my page, this back and front color are going to match exactly, which is what I want. And it's a good skill to be able to pull these colors off of a web page, because when you're trying to deal with the colors in your design, it's important that there's some relationship and some thought that goes into that. So I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, whether you're in my class or not. In our next video, what we're going to do is we're going to take this element and we're going to duplicate it for every one of our UN sustainability goals. So that's 17 times. And the one thing I'm going to say here is it's really important to make sure you have this first piece right. Because if you cut and paste this 17 times and you have something wrong in your first case, that's going to carry through and you're going to have to make 17 changes. So, with that said, have a great day. Thanks for watching.